very lucky to have a speaker, Anders Brown from Luxoft, who's going to talk about the IoT. But the idea of it being an internet of insights and turning these things into insights and ultimately into decisions. Anders?
Great, thank you, Roger. Thank you all for coming out after lunch. I hope we can have some fun with this talk. I've been thinking about this idea of the Internet of Insights for quite some time, actually. I figure everybody else has their Internet of Everything, Internet of Your Thing, so we might as well have our Internet of Insights. By way of introduction, my name is Anders Brown. I'm the managing director at Luxoft. Luxoft is a $2 billion publicly traded software and services company that predominantly focuses on delivering software value, system integration value for Fortune 500 companies around the globe. We go to market in almost all of the key vertical industries you're aware of, as well as have a lot of different horizontal capabilities, including, of course, IoT, which is the group that I head up on a global basis, and we brought some of our team here as well. There's a couple things that I wanted to point out before I get into my talk that I think will give some interesting context for how we're approaching this, or how we think about it. The first is that from a Luxoft standpoint, we've actually been doing this for a reasonably length of time, I'd say. Again, IoT really has only become super popular in the last number of years. But of course, many of us that have been in the industry know that it has its roots really in some of the old machine-to-machine technology. You guys remember that from 10, 15 years ago, and even before that in industrial automation. So from a Luxoft standpoint, we very much think that IoT is really an evolution, I'd say, not a complete and total revolution. And to a certain extent, we've tried to build our company and our go-to-market strategy around that. Clearly, there's been some things that have changed in the last number of years that have kind of enabled IoT to be very, very popular, to be very big, to have a lot of enthusiasm around it. Things like API standards that let all objects talk to other objects, the pervasiveness of big data platforms that most of you are aware of, and we see all the time in the open source community and some of the commercial offerings. Lots of new cloud offerings from folks like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all the big players, IBM, Cisco, GE, and of course lots of interesting innovation on sensors. Reducing cost of sensors, improved connectivity. So there's lots of stuff going on there. But that said, we still feel like this is, to a certain extent, an evolution, not a complete and total revolution. And you'll see why I make that point a little bit later when we get into this idea of insights. The second thing is, and I think this is something I'm very passionate about, is as I've looked at the industry over the last number of years and really reflected on where we are as a trend. And make no mistake, IoT is right now a trend. It's very much at the top of all the articles. It's in the hype cycle. There's lots of enthusiasm. CEOs are pounding, what is my IoT strategy? They're asking CIOs what we're going to do about it. But we're also at a critical time as a group. And I mean all of us. Everybody in this room is in this industry. And like all good technology trends before us, we have to find a time and a place where we start translating our language from technology to business value. From looking at it from the inside, what are we all doing and how do we all work together, to looking at it from the outside. How do our customers and their customers actually think about it? And to move from talking about technologies and platforms and capabilities to really talking about return on investment, differentiation, competitive advantage, and time to market, the language of our customers. And as you'll see through my talk, I feel like it's a great time to challenge all of us to think this way, for all of us to rotate our conversation and start talking about moving from things to decisions, from moving from just sensors and data to insight. And you'll see me make this claim. I hope you will come with me on this journey, this challenge that I think we've been thinking about and I think we have as an industry. And what I'm convinced of is that if we can get there together, it will be a very, very bright future for all of us in this room. I was going to start, though, by just stepping back a little bit. I've spent a lot of time. I stare at this word like you do all the time. Internet of Things. Who knows when this term was first coined? Anybody have any ideas? Somebody back there. Just shout it out if you got an idea. DARPA. That's what year, though? What year did we first coin the Internet of Things? Who has it? Give me some name. No year? 2008, I heard that. That's for sure when it got more and more popular. Depending on your viewpoint on Wikipedia, I found references all the way back to 1999. I think we can argue that it's been around for a while. I think we can also argue that the last number of years it got very, very, very popular. But what's fascinating to me, and one of my team members, Brandon Schultz, who gave a retail talk earlier, is this idea of a thing. It's a fairly non-descriptive noun that is part of this statement that has basically defined a whole new generation of computing. I was kind of joking. I thought for the talk I'd go see what else it could have been called. It could have been called the Internet of Stuff. Why not? We just have some stuff floating around that has IP addresses. It could have been the Internet of Effects. You could have your personal effects. You could have your connected effects. It could have been the Internet of Odds and Ends. Why not? Could have been anything, just some stuff lying around your manufacturing plant or your airplane hangar or your home. And my favorite is the Internet of Paraphernalia. Add a little depth to this thing, But it's not. It's not called these things. It's called this thing. And man, do we love our things. We love it like nobody else. Our entire industry has new things being launched all the time. And a lot of these are good. Don't get me wrong. There's things coming out everywhere. We have home things. We have industrial things for all sorts of vertical industries. We have health and fitness things. I found my favorite one recently was a set of chopsticks, actually, that had some chemical sensors at the tips to see if what you're eating is good or bad for you. I think that fork over there on the right actually is supposed to tell you how many calories you're eating. So don't get me wrong, a lot of these are really, really good. Some, not so much. I did some searching. I found all sorts of crazy things out there that are connected. I found on the upper left a paper toy that has a connection. I'm not quite sure why toys have to be connected, but so be it. In the middle there is a connected sewage system, which I'm sure is important. That was something coming out of an article from New York. Connected plants, why not? We might as well instrument our plants. I found the Internet of Christmas trees out online. Some of you saw this milk container. It came out in the last number of quarters. And then one of my favorite, of course, is connected diapers, because why shouldn't every parent know when their baby went to the bathroom? To a certain extent, we got a lot of this. My favorite, of course, is a connected toilet, which some of you have seen. So we have a lot of things. And from my viewpoint, and my position to you today, is this is a problem. It's a problem for us, and it's a problem for our industry. Who has any idea why I think that's a problem? Shout it out. IP addresses could be. What else we got? Security, data, information overload. A few more. Anybody in the front row here? What was that one?
None of them are true, what you say.
None of them are true. Could be. My position to you today, and a key theme of my talk and how we think about things as Luxoft, is that not a single CEO, not a single board of directors, not a single business unit owner that has budget to buy my services, your software, your hardware, whatever you have, not a single person wakes up saying, my IoT is broken. When's the last time you heard that from your customer? Can you fix my IoT? We love the things, we love the name, but nobody really has this fundamental problem. Nobody really wakes up saying, who has budget to spend on our industry and our work and our technology and our software and our capability and capacity, no one wakes up thinking this way. And that shouldn't be a surprise to all of us. We've all sold to people. We've sold to big companies, small companies. It just doesn't matter the size and scope. Fundamentally, we talk about IoT as technology, but at the same time, nobody necessarily in a position that you want to communicate with and talk to and sell to has exactly that problem. What's interesting, though, is that they have the same kind of problems they've had all the time. They have, how do I increase revenue? How do I decrease cost? How do I increase customer satisfaction? These are the things that when we go out and talk to large companies and small companies alike, they still think about. And what's fascinating to me and important for all of us is that these are exactly the same things they had a decade ago, 2 decades ago. You keep going. These are still the fundamental challenges of businesses today. We just now have the Internet of Things to apply to these business challenges. We can take our technology and our capacity, and we can rotate our conversation. In fact, we have to rotate our conversation to try to talk these kinds of business outcomes, these kinds of value creation, these kinds of things. And that is where I believe we need to start talking about moving from things to insights. To think about how IoT and all the technology and all the tools we bring to the table are actually going to help with decision making. Going to actually let someone in a position that can actually engage with us as customers or as their suppliers into how do they make better decisions. And this is my fundamental viewpoint. Again, we've talked to lots of people. Hopefully some of this resonates with the conversations you've had with customers. But I'm telling you, as an industry, no one has a broken IoT. They might have supply chain problems. They might have competitive threats. They might need to reduce inventories. And all of those things lead to increased revenue, decreased cost, and improved customer experience. But not a one wakes up and says, my IoT is broken. And again, this is where I believe that the Internet of Things, our industry that we're embracing and in the middle of, has to go. The good news is, again, just like the problems that we mentioned that they have still existed and they're here today, they'll be here in the future, and we just have a new set of technologies, we can try to work through how to think about this and communicate it by looking at what IoT can do through the lens of a CEO or of a business owner. What we've spent a lot of time on is trying to figure out how to articulate this discussion, and this is some of our viewpoint on how to do it. If you look at any business today, any business, I challenge all of you to try not to articulate it in these 3 kinds of categories of assets they have: people, objects, and spaces. Take an airline as an example. People, clearly, they have gate agents, they have people repairing their airplanes. Every company has people and employees. In their case, objects happen to be planes, tools for repairs, clipboards for monitoring what's going on in the airplanes. There's just stuff. There's things. There's objects. And then obviously spaces, manufacturing facilities, gates, airports. And depending on where you want to draw these boundaries, you can clearly align every company to these kinds of things. Automotive would be very, very similar. Even you can look at the agriculture industry. Tractors. We have farms with physical spaces, people working those. Even startups. I challenged myself on this with some of the consumer things like Nest. In that case, the people are the people that own the house, the people that are trying to get more value from their original thermostat system, heating system. Objects there is the thermostat, and spaces clearly is the house. The beauty about IoT now, and I think our competitive advantage as an industry, is that we can now talk about how to instrument these things. How to get more value from these things through expressing context, intent, data, other parts of it that weren't there. And why weren't they there a decade ago? Because we didn't have the sensors. We didn't have the connectivity. We didn't have the API standards to let these things communicate. Now we can talk about these things in this context to a CEO, which is you already have these assets. You already have these things you've always had. And now you can actually do something with them using IoT capability and technology. What you do with them then is collect information, manage that information, and take action on that information. For all of us in this room, this is the part where you have to translate from what you have as a CEO and as a business owner to the kinds of infrastructure you might need to think about building. For us in this room, the good news is there's tons of innovation in this area. Every one of those places, collecting and managing data, taking action, gaining insight, this is all happening, and it's happening in the industry. You get all sorts of big players doing all sorts of interesting things on collecting information, managing devices, cloud IoT platforms. Most of you saw Amazon just announced in the last number of weeks their IoT offering. Microsoft just announced their IoT offering. GE, Cisco, IBM, Salesforce, you name it. All the big guys that are out there have some kind of offering on helping you collect and manage, or collect and manage your devices, collect data and manage your devices. And everybody in this room probably has an opinion. Startups, service providers, but the fact is there's tons of innovation there. On the managed side, obviously there's an enormous amount of work on how do we manage the data. Again, from these objects and these assets that a company has. Again, we're all familiar with what's going on in the open source community around Hadoop. Lots of the commercial work happening around companies like Hortonworks and Cloudera. Lots of big data platform management companies, Mongo, you name it. Lots of innovation on managing the data. And then on the action piece, lots of innovation on machine learning, decision making, AI, lots of interesting things happening there. So from our standpoint, and I think from our CEO or business owner standpoint, we just have to accept that there's good innovation happening there. But again, what we have to do is translate that. And if we can translate that back into these same areas, how do I increase revenue, decrease cost, and increase customer satisfaction? That's where the value will be created for us as an industry. And this is this middle section that I think we get to spend time on, that we get to look at. From actually moving from data to insight and moving from things to decision. And I think if we can start talking as an industry about how to express this concept, these technical things that we live in every day, as more the business outcomes, the business value, the improvement to fundamental profitability, things that matter to businesses, will be in much better shape a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 down the road. And we're getting there, don't get me wrong, we're getting there. But I've been in one too many meetings where the CIO says, my CEO said I need an IoT strategy. And we say, well, what are you trying to accomplish in your business? And they actually can't answer that question. Anybody else had that happen to them out there? How many other people have had that conversation? I see a few hands out there in the back. That's a very interesting conversation. They fundamentally are starting with technology first. And for those of you that have been around for a long time, or not even that long, you know that that's usually not a good path to ultimately keeping an engagement, keeping your software, your capability, anything engaging a customer. So to a certain extent, I set this up because our opportunity as an industry is to help with this. And some of you maybe have saw this data is from the Accenture and Economist article, a paper that came out, I think just last week, maybe a week or two ago. But it said that 73% of companies have not yet made decisions on IoT as a theme. And that 52% are actively developing a strategy. My position is that part of the reason they haven't done it, when everyone in this room would say it's all out there for you. We've been doing it. All of us in this room have been doing it for years. So why haven't they made it? Because I believe they're still struggling with how to translate all of the cool technology, all of the cool capability, all of the cool headlines into something that actually really matters to their business. And my position is that actually those things can be addressed. You can talk about connected cars. You can talk about how to get more value from airline lounges using wearables. You can create these scenarios in their language to drive revenue, decrease cost, and increase customer satisfaction, but we just have to do it. So not only is it an opportunity, but frankly speaking, to all of you in this room, it's our responsibility. If we don't get this right as an industry, if we don't keep pushing the boundary of business value, of moving to talking about competitive advantage, time to market, increase revenue, decrease, and we keep talking about how cool my thing is without the context, I feel like it's a missed opportunity. I feel like it's a huge, huge missed opportunity for us to keep pushing the trajectory. And what I don't want to have happen is 10 years ago, people say, boy, that was a fad. We're not a fad. This industry has enormous value to be created, and it'll be up to our customers that will define the future, and particularly the history looking back. So from that standpoint, I think about it very much as a responsibility, and we spent at Luxoft a lot of time just trying to think through what are the use cases, what are the scenarios, how do we go to market in a way where people can connect the dots between spending money on one hand on IoT and at the other hand getting value created and talking to their boards of directors and how do they keep investing and all these things that come along with that. So what I wanted to do is actually switch, in the spirit of having a little bit of fun here, switch around a little bit and just go through a couple examples of industries and some scenarios we've paid a lot of attention to, actually, some of which hopefully you'll find quite interesting. One is going to be in retail. And again, some of you maybe had seen our talk earlier on how we're thinking about IoT and brick and mortar. And to go through this, I wanted to invite up Brandon Schultz. Brandon Schultz is part of our IoT team. He's on my leadership organization, driving specifically ideas in retail. So let's please welcome Brandon up to the stage to give a little talk here.
Thanks, Anders. So I'm going to talk about retail for a little bit. Retail companies fundamentally do three things. The first thing they have to do is create desire within customers to go out and want their product. They then have to convert that desire into a decision. That's then a sale. And after they've converted the sale, there's the supply and the stocking side of their business. And I real quickly want to focus on that middle section around the decision, because converting desire to a decision is actually a very difficult thing to do. And in the retail world, there's online sales, there's also physical retail. There are many different opinions on where both of those might go in the future, might increase, might decrease. But first of all, physical retail will never disappear. It won't disappear because it's fundamentally different. It is a unique experience, and here's why. When I walk into a retail store, there are sales associates. And those sales associates are essentially the most complex and powerful computers that exist. Humans. And they're collecting all kinds of data about me as a person. They're able to analyze whether I'm a return customer. They're able to issue me recommendations. They're able to analyze proxemics and where I am spatially within the store and what I might be interested in. They can then make other observations about the shelves and the products that I'm grabbing. They can drill down into my nonverbal communication and figure out how I'm feeling in that moment. And for that sales associate, they're trying to take my intent and understand what I'm intending to do and use that to turn it into a decision and a sale. I don't think that's something only humans can do. And I think IoT in a lot of ways is going to allow us to instrument these people in this environment to change their desire into decisions. And I have a quick demo that I'd like to show you to give a quick example. So I walk into my local retail store. Let's say it's Nordstrom. Nordstrom sells a lot of products, a lot of different kinds of products. Maybe initially I'm interested in some jeans, and I'm over in this section, I'm looking at some jeans, and I like the jeans, and that's great. But there's no display here, and maybe there's a hidden beacon somewhere and a Wi-Fi router that's collecting some data about the traffic and where I'm at. But nothing really happens. It's all hidden. Then I keep walking around, and again, nothing really happens. But I slowly start moving over into a different section, and I move into the women's section. For any sales associate, this would mean that I'm probably shopping for a significant other, either wife, girlfriend, whatever that might be. And it can now use that information to give me different kinds of offers. So it knows that I'm now standing right in front of the North Face section for women. That's great. I might purchase that, I might not, but that's also an opportunity to show that I am interested in North Face. And it can then send me this on a display in that aisle, promoting a men's North Face jacket in a different section because it knows who I am and where I am in that given moment. There are actually two beacons hidden under these chairs, which is why that triggered and why that happened. There could then also be a beacon back at the cash register. So the store knows that I've walked in, I've made my way around the store, I've come to a specific section, and they've given me a targeted offer. And then there's another beacon at the front of the store. If I don't go back to the cash register, they know that I essentially bounced and I wasn't a converted sale. But if I do go back to the cash register, and I spend roughly 60 seconds at the cash register, I've now been instrumented and converted into a sale through that IoT experience. Which goes all the way back to what Anders was talking about. You've got to do one of the three things. Increase revenue, decrease cost, or improve customer satisfaction. All of which you can do with IoT, all of which you can do it within retail. And this was strictly just proxemics and instrumenting people and spaces. Just kind of walked through the whole experience. But that's what we're looking at. We're very excited about the opportunities within retail. I'll turn it back over to Anders.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. As a side note, we have a booth. We'll be at, I think it's at 314? Booth 314 tonight and tomorrow. If you guys want to talk more about anything related to IoT and retail, Brandon will be there. He'll be here for a couple days. The next case study that I was going to actually comment on a little bit, and maybe a lot of you have seen what's going on in the agronomics world, but there's just an enormous amount of activity actually happening inside of this idea of precision agriculture. And we've been lucky enough to actually be paying attention to this market. What I'm showing you here now is a simple demo that you can go download this application in the Apple App Store right now called Harvest Mobile from John Deere. And what you're looking at now is the display of the iPad that we have running in back, just running in a demo mode. So this is just to show actually what's going on in this scenario. And what you see is I'm actually plotting because of on the left you see it's in yellow. I'm plotting ground speed. So the idea behind precision agriculture is how do I collect this high precision data? So again, telemetry of a thing, data of a thing. In this case, the thing happens to be a combine. And in this case, we're just plotting it against a set of thresholds. So the reason that you actually see the combine having green behind it is that we set our thresholds in this demonstration to be 4.1 to 5.0. And again, you can do this now. You can download this application among others from Deere, and we've been paying a lot of attention to this industry. But again, I can either track ground speed, moisture, dry yield, wet yield. These are parameters related to the act of harvesting at the end of the season. And here you can see the combine is actually turning the corner and tracking. So what's interesting about this demo is that we're currently just capturing the information in the demo here. If you look at it, we're just capturing the information from the combine. We're plotting it in the cab and displaying it on this iPad, which is there right in front of the driver of the combine. What you might see over there on the right, however, is a little tab there called Interactive Combine. And this is some work that Deere has done to translate the data, the capturing of the information, and the observation of what I'm doing with some business rules that are in the system to actually drive improved behavior of the combine, to actually improve the harvesting process real time. And so what I have here is the demo. Because we don't have a combine to show how it might really work in the real world, what I actually have, and I'm going to translate over to, is an actual video of this same thing with actually real live combine data coming in, and we'll talk through what that interactive combine looks like. And in this case, what we're trying to do is drive behavior related to improving revenue, because if I can improve my yield when I'm actually driving a combine, Deere's position, that's great for the customer. So can we get a cut back over to the slides? So again, here is what you effectively just saw. Again, what I'm going to point out is when the video starts, this interactive combine on the right. So here's our combine driving. We're going to click the interactive combine button. And so when that comes up, a couple things happen. One is this feedback loop kicks in. So it asks me, what kinds of things are you seeing? Shoe loss, separator loss, unthreshed grain loss, broken grain. What's interesting is if you're in this industry, this means a lot to you. It may not mean anything to people in this room, but if you're in this industry trying to drive your revenue up, remember, we have to stay true to one of those themes. This means a lot to you because you're trying to improve your yield. What we can do then is actually decide which ones are most important to us. So is grain loss, broken grain, which one of these things are important? So we're going to set some business rules here. And here you can see we can just, in this application that Deere has released, farmers can set what's most important. They can click next. We get back to actually the issues that we're observing. And in this case, the user will scroll down, look at a few things they're observing. They're going to select sticks and cobs, maybe broken grain and unthreshed grain. So these are the three things that I'm saying that I'm actually going to see. Because the system that Deere's created is intelligent and interactive, it's saying, great, I'm going to actually give you some suggestions on what things you should change. Again, decision-making, insight, on your combine real time while you're harvesting. So it's saying there's a number of things you can change to try to address these issues. And again, if you're driving the combine right now, this actually means something to you. Increased ground speed, increased rotor speed, increased threshing clearance. You can see a number of them have come back automatically from the system that has been in the hands of the operator. And in this case, I think we'll just ask to increase the fan speed. Now, what's very interesting about this is that you can increase the fan speed by hand, but because we're actually a thing that has an IP address and part of a system, Deere's allowing this to happen automatically, and ultimately then it makes the adjustment. You can see that. It's going ahead automatically making the adjustment. Again, you're driving your combine. Now it's looking at the new crop that's coming in. We've made an adjustment, so the feedback loop, again, we made some decisions. And now we're going to try to tell the system what I'm actually observing on these three issues that I actually had highlighted before: broken grain, unthreshed grain, and the third one being sticks and cobs. So now you're giving the system feedback to improve it. And then I can click next. It can now say, have you seen any other issues? If you haven't, you click no, and then we're back and we're done with the process. So here in this case, Deere has done some really interesting things we've been paying attention to, which is basically turning data, again, high precision data, telemetry of a combine, not just for displaying and visualization, but actually putting intelligence and decision making. And what this does is it allows Deere, in this case, to go out to the agriculture industry and say, let's help you increase revenue. Not let's do some cool sensors on your combine. Let's actually help you increase revenue. And in that case, they're trying to fulfill their value proposition to their customer. And we see this a lot in large enterprise customers and lots of players in the industry all over the place, is essentially how do we use this data in IoT to translate into this decision making? Again, moving from data to insight. Couple of other examples that we've been paying attention to, I'd say, just to share with you some final thoughts. We see a lot of what's going on with Tesla. Of course, everyone gets very, very excited about what's going on the technology side of Tesla. What we find very interesting is that they're moving from just telemetry of the car, and you see this in the headlines, to actually the idea of making decisions. And just, I think, last week there was an interesting story about someone released a video post of the autopilot kicking in. Again, great example where you have the data, you have the telemetry, the thing is a car. It's not just about the car, though. It's about the decision-making around how do I avoid accidents. Another one we're paying attention to and thought was really interesting is just about 2 weeks ago, Maersk and AT&T talked about new telemetry of shipping containers. But again, it's not just about the sensors on shipping containers. We've kind of been doing that for a while. It's about the decision-making specifically related to cold storage, which again has been a problem. But again, the new sensors, the new telemetry, that has actually enabled Maersk and AT&T in this case to offer a whole new offering to their customer base. And then one that I just saw today, which is crazy as it may be, is actually precision dairy farming. And that was just in the news today, actually. I just added this slide a couple hours ago around what does it mean to actually measure and monitor and, again, provide feedback to people that are involved in this idea of precision dairy farming. How do we get more out of our people, our objects, and our spaces that we have before? So again, these are just a couple examples, industries we're paying attention to, things you can download on your own. I encourage you to take a look at all of this. But my point in all cases is the headline-grabbing news has to become around creating value, not just about the thing. And so to a certain extent, my final slide is our challenge. This is the same report from Accenture and The Economist. This is our challenge as an industry. They expect, when you talk to the C-suite, 46% believe we're going to optimize assets with IoT. 46% believe we're going to improve productivity. And 44% expect that we're going to cut costs. Again, fundamental things that they're thinking about. So if we don't do the right work to translate all of our great capacity, technology, investment into these kinds of things, it's a missed opportunity. I, for one, am absolutely up for the challenge. I hope you are as well. Come visit us at our booth, and thank you all very, very much for attending.